some time, but just to kick things off, I'll set some context to what we're trying to cover with this session. We have with us Renato today, who is one of the maintainers of Doxy, and we are primarily trying to focus on how do you start making your first open source contributions, right? What are the typical things to watch out for here, and how do we how do we set a process to it? Renato will also be talking about his own experience building an open source project, scaling the open source project, and I think it's a great chance for all of you all to interact with Renato directly. Post any questions you have about contributing to Doxy, any questions related to Doxy, or even with open source contributions in general. And I'm sure that Renato would be happy to kind of take any questions that come his way and answer them. So yeah, just I think we're live. We'll wait for another 2 more minutes, and at around 6:35 we can start the session. Yeah. Thank you for joining, everyone, and a big shout out to Code Peak, IIT Guwahati, and IIT Patna for setting this up and collaborating with Aviyel for this. Guys, feel free to kind of post any questions you have in the Q&A section and in the chat section. Yeah. Thanks.
Everyone, it's a pleasure to be here. Medio, I have a question. Where can I see the questions on the QA? There's a link for that, right?
Yeah, I think you should be able to see them on the chat or the Q&A section.
I just noticed it. Thank you.
Okay, awesome. Renato, if you're ready, we can start now.
I just saw this 2 questions from Shivan.
Yeah, I think let's just do a quick introduction first, and then we can kind of jump into it, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so yeah, it's a good start. So I think first off, Renato, I have been maintainer of Doxy for half of a year, I guess, and I joined to Pedro, which was the main maintainer so far for the project. Actually, we had another maintainer, but he was more like actually trying to get things on track, not actually building anything new. So because Pedro is very busy, we actually already we even have a issue open in your GitHub about that, like talking about the long story about Doxy. But yeah, we will catch up this story here as well, like in a very specific details. But I have been helping Pedro to not actually just get the project on track, but also thinking about how we're gonna improve that in the long term, and what I want to bring to the community through the documentation stuff that we're trying to solve as a project. So we're kind of working together, and and I have been the main maintainer right now of the project, and I'm also have been inviting other friends of mine to help me out on this long journey, because we had a lot of different things to bring out to the project. So I'm pretty excited to be here to answer any questions that you might have, especially about contributing, because this is a special thing for us. Specifically because of the moment that we have right now, and the timing that we're trying to catch as soon as you can, and the next further months. So I'm pretty excited to be here, and yeah, I think that's pretty much who I am. And should I explain about Doxy as well, Matteo?
Yeah, thanks so much for that introduction, Renato, and taking time out to be with us here today. Yeah, absolutely. I think Doxy is one of the five projects on Aviyel. Aviyel is a platform where you can find a lot of resources along any open source project, and Doxy is one of the first projects we've onboarded. Doxy, I think the focus with Doxy is to make it very easy to write and publish interactive documentation for your code, and it really beautifully leverages Gatsby and MDX to give that custom look and feel, right? So would definitely love to hear about how did you guys start Doxy, and why did you decide to go open source with Doxy, right? And as a maintainer, what are the challenges with open source that you're really kind of seeing right now?
Okay, so just to make sure, the first question is why you did get Docs in the first place,
Yeah,
what kind of problem we're trying to solve, and why we did the get into open source. That's right.
correct, correct.
Yeah. So I think the main thing that I'm trying to solve it was the simplicity to get started as soon as possible to write documentation. So it wasn't like to solve the old documentation stuff, the old documentation problem, but it was for trying to get started as soon as possible to write this documentation in a simple way, in a way that could be able or make it able people to actually contribute to that. And I think that was the reason, because the Pedro realized back then that had a lot of different problems to solve through the documentation, and also about um, about the kind of stuff that he probably actually had to solve through his own problems in his own application, his own experiences. So he was trying to actually write documentation in a simple way, and the open source was a great idea because of the open source, which he actually already had in the past other experiences. He realized that it would be a great idea to use the open source for for making the project grow faster, and also like to receive contributions around the world, and actually notorious about the other people in tech as well. So I think the main thing it was like to build a sense of community in the Doxy through the open source. That was definitely the main thing that I was trying that we were trying to do as a project. And also the open source was I think the main thing that made the project like the project start and go well, and especially in the long term, because we have been like with the project for a couple of years already, and now we're actually trying to get new things from that. And yeah, I'm very excited to talk about that.
Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, thanks for giving us a little bit of that rundown. Renato, I think a lot of the people on call today here are, people who have pledged to make open source contributions as part of the Winter of Code, program that we are doing with Code Peak, right? And do you want to talk about open source contributions in general first, and also a lot of these guys are making their first open source contributions, right? How do they go about this? How do they start their process, and what are the things to kind of watch out for here?
Yeah. So I think the main thing, I think as always, is try to understand how can you contribute, using your own skills, the skills that you already have as an engineer. So like many people has the text and the language skills, the soft skills to communicate themselves for, so that it could be useful for write documentation, for write good rhythms, make the docs of the project grow up and be better. So that's pretty interesting thing. So the main thing is to understand how can you be useful for the project. So the stack behind the project is pretty important. For example, in Doxy, we use Gatsby to leverage the power of the writing documentation and have everything, up um, very fast. So if you have the knowledge from Gatsby, you might be pretty useful for help us to make the project grow, and with ideas, with with main issues that it might have, through the process of making the project work. So I guess it's kind of the same process that you have for trying to understand how can you contribute to a project. It's like to understand which are your skills and how could you use them for making a project be better. So that's probably the main thing. And probably the second thing is to trying to understand how the project needs your help, because eventually you might be useful for the project, but it's not every time that a project needs your help. So it's not necessarily I think that you're gonna have in every project want to contribute. But fortunately for all of us, we have several projects across the internet on the GitHub open source projects that you're gonna be able to evolve and help out. So I guess my first contributions in the open source, it was totally because I had a mentor back then, and he was like pretty insistent on make me open source maintainer and contributor. So every time that I had an issue through open source tooling, he made me to open an issue and go through it, and talk with the maintainers, make a relationship with them, try to understand how can I solve the problem as soon as possible, instead of just look out for your own workaround, but also trying to understand how the code actually works and how can I solve this problem in the open source. Maybe open a PR, or maybe try to understand, like, make a fork, and then use the fork anyway. Use a process that you're gonna be responsible for the problem of the open source as well, not just like using the project and getting all the other things for the creators, for the maintainers. Because actually, in the long run, for most maintainers, especially the ones that are not sustained financially from the open source, they probably have struggle a lot in maintaining big open source projects, because it's not a trivial thing. It's pretty excited to do something like that, but it's not easy. It's not an easy path. Yeah, I guess that's it. Trying to understand how can your knowledge, your skills can be used for the project, and secondly, try to understand how the project needs you. So for me, that's it.
Awesome, awesome. So basically, I think to summarize what you're saying is, let's focus on your skill set. Everybody can contribute to open source. You don't have to limit yourself just to technical code, and also identify how to raise a fork and identify the issues that can be solved. Right. So that's how
Yeah.
you start with your first open source contributions. I think there are a couple of questions coming in. I have a lot of questions for you, Renato, for sure. But let's definitely take some questions. You can go to the Q&A section and pick anyone that you want to kind of start with. Few questions have started coming in. I think one interesting question is, one such feature of Doxy that makes it the go-to choice over other documentation tools. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, I saw that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's still the main thing, like in your current version, because this is going to be changed. I truly believe in the next further versions that we're just preparing for the community. But right now, until now, in the last stable version, I guess the killer feature that we have is the simplicity. Because if you notice, with all the other competitors, they have a lot of things that need to set up before doing anything. So Doxy doesn't have anything like that. We just we try as much as we can, as hard as we can, to make things simple, keep things simple. So you're not gonna be able to struggle in anything. If you do, it's probably because of the environment that I wasn't expecting for, and yeah, of course we need to improve that. But regardless, the main thing that we're trying to do in first place is always to prepare an environment for you, for make you spend less time on doing our thing, which is like set things up, and actually, we're spending the only time that we have for the main thing that we're trying to do, which is the communication in the first place. So I guess like, so the features that we have, the MDX thing, for example, and the way that we reach out all MDX file in your project, you don't need to set like the regex for finding the files, for example. You just need to put your files inside of the folder of your component, start writing the documentation for this component using markdown that you probably are comfortable with, because it's like the main documentation thing that you probably use in your project for the coded list. And so and also like you can use the playground that we have, which is like a toolbox that you're gonna be responsible for handling your component and reset your handler, and and test your component over the documentation. You can even not use any component from us. Like you can just handle your component or documentation, or write your ons, like wrap up your component using like your own playground that you may have for for making your documentation better. So I guess we're pretty straightforward compared to all the other options that we have in the market. And not any we always gonna hit things like that, because it's pretty much uh, what you want from the market, and we unfortunately don't have. And we were just trying to right now like leveraging the power that we have through the recommendations thing, and also make things better for maintaining, and also to to contribute because we actually need a lot of contributors. But the project right now, it's kind of different from what we want for make the contributors life even faster and better, as much as is using Doxy in the real world. So that's, I guess, pretty much the main thing that we bring to the community, or bring to open source as a project.
Thanks, Renato. Yeah, I think documentation is such a crucial part of any project, right? And with Doxy coming in and with a very razor sharp focus on simplicity, I think you and Pedro keep talking about how that's the core thing that you're trying to solve. I think it makes a lot of sense. Um, I think there are a lot of questions coming in, so let's kind of start picking a couple of questions and go through it. And just a general, announcement for everybody who's joining in. Thanks so much for joining in for this session. If you've just joined in, I just want to give you a quick recap. We have Renato, who is the maintainer of Doxy, with us here today, and the agenda of this call is to kind of give you a sense on the journey behind Doxy. How can you make your first contributions? Renato is the maintainer for Doxy, so it would be, if you have any questions around contributions or Doxy, feel free to kind of post it in the Q&A section. And yeah, over to you, Renato. Feel free to kind of pick a question that you think you want to kind of handle, and we can go with that.
Awesome. I think there is a important one here, which is from Manhur, which is what are the future plans of Doxy, or the Doxy be extended to other platforms and languages? Yeah, I think this is important one, because it's about things that we're actually preparing to further release, that we planning to release very soon. So I guess like the language, honestly, we don't have, I think actually that there's another thing to just saying in the first place. I guess like um, open source are always decided by the community that what brought it in through the problems that we're trying to solve. So for us, we actually are working for front engineers mainly, that are trying to write their documentation stuff for their components, for the component space, especially in React, because we see how React does the brings the idea to write as much components as you can for your code base, because everything's a component, everything's connected by components. So because of that, our problem that we're trying to solve mainly is for React components for front end engineers. So so the language is not gonna be that so different from the community is using. So if the community is using ReasonML, which is like Rescript for instance, we probably will have a full support because the community is needing for that. So, but we noticed that right now, like the community has been using mainly TypeScript and JavaScript underneath, of course, but mainly TypeScript. So and the project already is in TypeScript, all fully supported. And so the main thing that we're trying to keep is TypeScript. That's not going to be changed. However, the platforms, we definitely want to improve that because at least my meaning, my own meaning of platforms in that sense is like where the project runs. So, and I guess about that subject, we trying to we definitely trying to improve the how widely how wide our project is supported through the platforms that we have in the market. So and that means like we don't want to just our project run your CLI, but we also want to improve how you communicate through the project using other tools that we might be launching soon. So we also want to improve how this communication through the platforms is working, because right now you don't have much power. Like we just have power for making your project run through a web server, which is actually managed by Gatsby underneath. So and that's not great because like you just have the power for making your project works and some local hosts and eventually in some in some cloud provider and then remotely to be remotely accessed. But this communication ends in this point. So we don't need that. We don't need no. We don't want that. And because I guess we truly believe you need so much power than that. Because you as a developer shouldn't be like shouldn't be spending time on doing things one more time that is not your responsibility, because the project needs to support everything ever specific thing that is not like what you're trying to solve. So we want as much as we can like offer things that are going to make developer faster to focus on the problem they're trying to serve in the first place, which is the documentation for React components. So mainly from the engineers trying to probably reduce the gap between him and the designers in a communication in a better communication way, which is like representative by how the components from the code base are working. So we definitely want to bring that, and for doing it, we need to improve our platform sustainability. And for doing it, we're gonna be able. We're actually working right now, actively working on. Oh, I guess my AirPods are off of battery. You guys still can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, finally, I guess like the thing I want to bring for the platform sustainability is especially to make things even better for the people who is trying to contribute to the Doxy. So we need to get this platform, better as soon as you can for making test things be simpler, be better, and also to distribute and make our make the things that we're trying to offer even widely. So I guess like the future plans that we have is maximized by the problems we still have and the documentation for components that we still didn't solve. and we're trying to solve these problems, and which is like which we believe is the things that are actually around the main problem, which is focused on documentation stuff. So we believe that the engineer behind the component is responsible for making this communication happens, of course, but we need to have and you need to offer as to every single support that you need, that you might need for making this communication works. Between you and the designer, probably, or the product manager, or something that is behind the product. So I guess like that's our future plan. That how we have been, planning things out, and and deciding which fight is going to strive or not. And yeah,
Awesome. So, a lot to look forward to from Doxy. Really exciting times ahead. Yeah.
yeah,
Renato, I have there's another interesting question here. How can you start a cool open source project on their own? So I think this is also a good way for you to kind of talk about how you created, Doxy, and how does somebody, create their own open source project, and how do they go about it? Because, like we know, we've discussed this, you have to build a community around it. It's not just about the code. So, do you want to shed some light on this?
yeah. I guess the first thing is I was like focused on the problem that I'm trying to solve in the first place. So I guess as much as you are like the totally aware of the problem they're trying to solve, in a sense where you probably is the you're pretty familiar with the problem you're trying to solve. For example, documentation. So you have been working on documenting stuff for components in a long time. You just like realize that doesn't have any tooling that support what it's trying to do. So you need to probably start thinking about how to solve this problem in a way that the tools that you use, not gonna work in the long term for you as well. So you need to probably there's something that I could think about it. So I guess start with the problem is probably the main reasonable thing to do, because once you have the problem to solve, you need to start solving the problem in a way that it's going to be useful for other people. And the second thing is, if you want to make a hard project, you're gonna have to use you know other strategies as well, because it's if you believe that you're solving the problem in a good way, that it gonna be useful for other people, you need to make this thing clear for everyone else, that you have access. So through Twitter, for example, like making a cool account for this project, making this project seems real, sounds real for everyone else, for every people that are, gonna take a look at this project to see, hey, it seems like it is a real thing. So maybe I should be, take a look, if this pay off for the problems that I'm trying, that I'm facing right now, for example. So also you need to use like you probably know, you actually you really need to have good docs around what you're trying to do or how to use your documentation. So if your project's like it's pretty simple, I guess, like the problem they're trying to solve, it's pretty simple, it's not, it's still big. I guess you just can use a good readme but well documented, and make this readme at least be dispatch it to a cloud provider, and have a site about it, because I guess like on the side you can distribute this real thing one more time to make people aware of that. I'm not saying that project that doesn't have those accounts or this thing not gonna work, not gonna be hard or be useful. But if you want to make a cool project, which in my sense means like a hot project, which a lot of other people has been using for their own favors, I guess you need to force yourself to do that as well, because eventually not gonna happen like naturally, because we don't have how to predict make things hot. In theory, if you solve a problem that a lot of people has, they probably gonna use your tooling. They probably gonna like tooling, so you're gonna have much stars, like a lot of stars, but not necessarily happen, because not necessarily people are gonna use your tooling if you doesn't, if you're not doing documenting it right. So you need to do a lot of things first, and I guess like is the two parts of your project. That's probably the first thing. So having the having the problem clearly for you, it gonna it gonna save you a lot of time for trying to actually build a solution that you still don't have, because if you don't have the problem, just trying to write code that not gonna work for anyone, probably just for you, because you have a lot of bias about the problem that is you think you have and you think other people have. But when you focus on the problem and you see like exactly how a startup works, how to bring a project from scratch, I guess like if you force yourself to understand like the all the all the grounds of a problem they're trying to solve, you're gonna be able to make the project be access to be useful for other people as well. But making the things clear using your documentation skills, as the on docs of the project, as the like the as I say on the accounts that it might have like in Twitter and GitHub, and anyway, like anything. um, so I guess that's going to be useful and pretty valuable for make other people use the project. So yeah, I guess that all be how I start my project for if I want to like make this project hot for the
Got it,
community.
got it. I think you pointed out on a very important thing there, right? Like open source projects are very similar to startups. You focus on the problem, and unlike startups, the monetization is still something that you're trying to figure out with open source. But the problem comes first, and then once you identify a problem that's worth solving, then you build a project around it, right? And that's kind of the key thing. I think you're also trying to communicate with that. I think that's a good segue to the next question I want to kind of bring up with you, which is how do you develop community? How do you manage your interactions and your time with contributors, with mentees? There's a question by Gunjan who just brought it up, saying what kind of interactions do you have with contributors and I think by mentees he's talking about people you're trying to mentor, right? Uh, and I think this is probably of a lot of interest for a lot of people in this call because they're all first-time contributors and they want to understand how they can also work with you closely. So, is there scope for that? How do you manage time with that?
Um, yeah, I just trying to understand actually, how far the question is. Like, so it's about mentorship in open source specifically, or in general sense?
It definitely in open source, yeah.
Okay, so how did I
Do you,
use like
yeah, do
tell
you
me
spend
for
do you have time to interact with the community? How do you engage with your community generally?
oh yeah, for the community. Gotcha. Okay. Um, honestly, right now we have been pretty busy discussing things between us, like internally, because we just noticed that the Doxy was in a sense that it should be at this point. So we needed like to discuss internally first to understand how we wanna bring like the real solutions, the good solutions for the community. So honestly, lately I not have been any of us I guess have been spending so much time like interacting all the time with the community. But what I do personally, and I still do by the way, is like using the notifications for GitHub to at least be notified about anything that might happen in the open source project. And that's probably one of the biggest ideas that I might have for contributing to a project, because this is pretty useful. What I would suggest to you for especially for helping a project, an open source project to grow and contribute to it. It's turn on your notifications, all the notifications, so um, doesn't be like doesn't have don't have fear about that. Just turn on all the notifications over, and look out for ever specific issue and spend time on it. So one more time, personally, what I do is turn on the notifications and use amount of a small amount of my time. So if I'm not wrong, I have like 1 or 2 hours of my day to specifically just look out to all the things that just happened in the issues and the things that I was, I'm concerned about it. So if you do that, you're probably gonna have interaction indirectly with the project, with the maintainers, with the with those guys that have been sustaining and supporting the project. And secondly, I guess that's probably how I did get a contributor and maintaining of all of the projects that I was before Doxy, I guess, because I couldn't be able to contribute to them anymore. But I guess the second thing was actually start to interact with those problems. So like in the on issues, I guess. So you can like trying to help people over the issues because you probably you probably don't believe that, I know, but I didn't. But when I started to notice, the problem that the most people were having the project was something pretty simple that I was pretty aware how to solve. So it was like problems that I already had in the past, and it was pretty simple for me to help them out. Exactly how I would do if I was working with them, directly in the project, and in my own job. So I was like starting to actually be meaningful for the maintainers to, save them time and say indirectly to them like, hey, I have the skill to help you out. So hey, pay attention for me. Maybe I can be a special one for helping you with the project. So as much as you do that, the maintainer is gonna see, gonna notice how important you are for the project, and they're probably gonna make you or not, probably not actually gonna make a contributor. But if they do, if they don't, which is probably gonna happen, I guess if you have this attention, you have this like you have been doing a great work towards that, you're probably gonna be able to talk with them. I use it a lot of Diane's direct message in Twitter to talk with maintainers of the projects, open source projects, to actually be introduced to the contributors team. So that was like I guess the first couple times that I became a contributor to a project was exactly like that. I just noticed a project that it wasn't being good, and so I started to help the maintainer, and after that like start interaction with them, and finally became a contributor, and then I could like help him because I just started like a relationship with him. It was pretty simple for me to after that like uh, anyway be part of the team of the project. So I guess that was naturally done. But yeah, I use a lot of different not strategies, but I guess habits, I guess behaviors that was meaningful for the people that I was behind the scenes maintaining these projects, and that's pretty meaningful for me as well. For example, if I notice people helping the project, I'm probably gonna talk to them like, hey, we have this issue. What do you think about it? We're thinking about that. Why do you think about it? So, if you notice people like being, behaving differently that we have from the people that use open source project, which is just like for just reporting issues and not just opening PRs or bring ideas or even answering if they solve the issue. So you're probably gonna you're gonna probably pay attention for the maintainers, because this is pretty useful. This is pretty important for all of us. So yeah, I guess that's probably, I guess, interactions that you mean, right? Did you mean?
Yeah, thanks for taking that. Gunjan, let us know if that answers your question. But I think that definitely gives a lot of people on the call insight on how do they start. Right, you start contributing to projects, get their attention, and you start engaging with the maintainers directly. Makes sense. There are a couple of interesting questions on the Q&A section. Renato, do you want to go through them and see which one you want to kind of take? I think we have time for a couple more before we wrap up the call. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely can do it. Let me see. We have, okay, no, another question. Um, I guess there was a hard one from Anush. I'm not sure it's about open source, um, but I guess he talking about computer science, I guess, and how the opportunities in the market has been like connecting the knowledge with the computer science. Does that make sense? Is that right?
Yeah, he's talking about
Uh,
how CS is interdisciplinary in nature and how it's becoming more complex, right? Yeah, feel free to kind of share your thoughts on that. I think that's definitely a very interesting question, and would love to know what you think about it.
yeah, I think that's like important thing even for open source specifically. Because like uh, if you think about it, like most people that actually contribute to the open source are not students, which is interesting because eventually students you probably all probably have more time, I guess, to actually contribute for parallel projects, for second projects, which are not like the primary project they're working on. And I don't know, they have probably more energy to put that in. But it's interesting because when I was in college, when I was like in my early age of my career, engineering career, I definitely had a lot of time, a lot of energy to do that. So, but I couldn't because I wasn't aware of the power that I was able to do. If it was so, you know, with a little experience, with a little kind of knowledge that I thought that I had in that time. So I was just thinking, this is an interesting question because, in my senses, I guess like computer science and specifically about the field doesn't connect you with the last layer problems, which is like the problems that are probably gonna face in a daily basis. Because computer science is trying to get you on the base of how the computer actually works and how you can be able to solve any problem through a computer, which is like just a big calculator. So you using computers are going to be able to leverage the power of what you can do. But this is not about like the last layer of the problems that are facing. Computer science is talking about the first layer. So, but between this both, we have a lot of other layers that it might face on, in your career, in your life, probably. So my guess is the computer side gonna get you on the base, like the fundamentals that you might need, that you're probably gonna need actually for solving any problems that you're gonna have. Is even in open source, and I guess like it's not actually directly connected, but I guess one more time, if you use the fundamentals right and you get the fundamentals like pretty clear for you, you're gonna be able to use that fundamentals to understand how to solve the problems. I'm gonna give you an example. Like I'm not sure how many people didn't know about it, but React actually was founded and presupposing ideas uh, back to language that was actually created in the 70s. So if you mind it right, you're just gonna realize that we had for almost 40 years, like all those knowledge, but we weren't like using those knowledge, but they were there. So if you probably studied computer science, you probably noticed and learned about functional programming and functional programming language. I don't know, like the problem, the main ones, use it principally for mathematical ones to calculate big things, in a way that it wasn't like, that it wasn't stuck to the process. Um, but anyway, so you just like, you need to realize how this fundamentals thing was actually connected to the React and their fundamentals as well. So the principles behind React, I totally found that are totally based on things that actually are pre-owned, because there are fundamentals. There are the things that are not gonna be changed probably, because they're truths behind the computer and the science behind it. So I guess, like, one more time, if you try to understand actually pretty and clear and not focus on the problem necessarily and try to solve, but actually the knowledge itself, and how could you be able to use this knowledge to solve a problem that it might have, it probably not gonna be connected to the first layer of your daily basis. So like documentation, for example, it's like a daily basis problem. It's about communication, it's about writing, it's about components. So but still we had to deal with some parsing stuff. So we had to know about lexer and grammar and how language works behind the scenes. For example, abstraction syntax tree, which is a fundamental that it might be learning on the computer science. Because so I'm not sure if you mind, but if I didn't, focus and spend time on learning it right, I'm not gonna be able. I want to be able to solve this problem. Actually, I probably will be able to solve this problem, but not in the same sense that I could be if I just pay much attention for the things that I was learning back in college. So I guess last time I'm gonna say that just for to conclude my thesis here. I guess, like, we need to use the fundamentals from your computer science field or your degree in general. I guess, like, use your professor knowledge in the best way you can, and but focus those knowledge not in the first layer of problems, but actually in the power that you can bring to those knowledge to solve the first problem. So try to understand how it could be useful for you, and secondly, connect that to the principles of the tools that that we do have right now. For example, I just mentioned React, but I have several of others actually just bringing out things that are pretty old, because they're principles and they're like unchanged, I guess, and so forth. And so, anyways, so I guess computer science still pays off, but you need to use it as properly. And I don't know, it's important, but connect that with the of all the layers of the problems to you know be responsible for actually solving real problems in the end of the day.
Yeah, it's a really cool insight on React, Renato. I think that was very important to kind of point out how we need to kind of relook at things also, right? I think we're just running out of time. So I think my last question to you, Renato, would be with Doxy specifically, right? What kind of contributions do you think people need to focus on? Which is area that you need the most support with? Because I think the community is, here to really help us out with that aspect. And with Aviyel also, we're pushing a lot of events and a lot of content around it. But as part of Winter of Code, for people who's just having their first time open source contributions, with respect to Doxy, what would you prefer? What is the focus area you would say for them to start, or which is the best place for them to start for their first open source contributions?
Good question. I think we have two kind of connected things, but different things on Doxy that I wanna solve, but we don't have time necessarily to do, but it's kind of trying to do in a different way. But like for the further versions, wishes are actually, those are two problems. It's like about the mismatching of versions that we're still having through the Gatsby, because we actually like um, just like I'm gonna try to give a little bit of context, because I truly want you guys helping us out, like contribute to the project. So a little bit of content. So on we actually on the process of using Doxy, we actually kind of create a Gatsby project in your own project, which is going to be like our folder, call it like Doxy, which is like which could be like our binary, which is actually is a Gatsby project. So we just wrap up the comments from Gatsby through the Doxy binary. So it's like we have, of course, a layer behind it, like the Doxy CLI, and this. But in the end, underneath, we're just trying to actually connect the comments from Doxy to the Gatsby comments, like using it as properly as we need for the things that I'm trying to do for you. However, we have in the end of the day like a lot of problems from Gatsby, because even underneath you're just using a a rapid Gatsby project. So that's why you're able to use your own Gatsby config and kind of override the config that we had generally we had generally done for you. So, and for that reason, when you actually need some some plugins or some things that we still don't support necessarily from your code, because we need to parse your code, of course, because when you just run Doxy, that you're gonna have to read your files from Markdown, but your Markdown is actually importing your code. So we need to read your code and parse your code to actually bring that up to the Gatsby project and be in run as properly there. So that's why you have a mismatching of versions, because in the meantime, when you're trying to make your project compat with the things that are just doing, we don't necessarily support all the versions of everything, because it's just like mixing the things between our project and your project, and that's kind of being painful. And we actually we're doing good at that moment with that project, and the newer ideas that I just had, to solve those problems in the long run. But it still do have a lot of issues on GitHub that people are not 100% aware of that. I mean, not actually to solve their own problems. We're just trying to do that over a lot of times. But I guess it would be pretty important and meaningful for us to have other people trying to help those people, because eventually you have some people that we unfortunately we don't have time for keep in touch with their problems, in the sense of trying to reproduce as much as we can until get the old problem happening to us as well. So I guess like if you guys be able to reproduce their problems, aware of the reason of the problem that we already have, that would be pretty important. And also the other problem um, um, is about so have this mismatching. Yeah, actually, I thought that I just talking about the other problem, which is about like the Gatsby itself. So we have like we have several people trying to make their code fully supported to Doxy for those things work together. And for that reason, many people try to use on Gatsby config, using their own plugins for making things compatible with Doxy. And that might not works eventually, and most part of time it's not gonna work because people don't doesn't pay attention for their own versions. So that's why I say personally that was two connected problems, because it still are two problems, but they're pretty connected, because the other problem is this mismatching specifically for the plugins that we have in Gatsby, and for those plugins. So we have a lot of people struggling into it, struggling into trying to make things compatible, and doesn't working well, and not working well for because of the version of Gatsby behind those plugins. So, and one more time, we need to reproduce them, and eventually the reason, and you say to them like, hey, this is a simple way to solve that. However, because of the current status, the current update of the project, we can like solve all those problems for good at once. So we're gonna need like to solve any problem, like specifically for um, uh, every issue. In the meantime, unfortunately, because we're changing, we're about to change, we're about to launch a version 3 of Doxy, just for make things clear. So we're actually gonna make not breaking changes necessarily, because we're going to do exactly how React does. So we're not going to launch a breaking change version that is gonna actually break the last stuff, but the we're not gonna support anymore the old way to do stuff. So, and the new way, we're not gonna be. We're actually gonna to kill this problem for good, because we're going to change how the Gatsby actually works into our own environment, and how it's exposed to other people use that. So in that way, you're gonna be able to have more control about this overriding stuff, and how all those things works, and you're gonna be able to actually not have this problem anymore, and also like improve the code base, and the the predictability of make things works. So hopefully you're gonna get that soon. Unfortunately, we don't. So any support, any help, gonna be pretty meaningful for us. That's for sure.
Awesome. Thanks so much for taking us through that, Renato. I think with that we've kind of run out of time as well for the session. But big shout out. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to kind of do this call for Aviyel and for Code Peak, and for hopefully the Doxy community, right, and new members of the Doxy community. Um, Again, thank you so much for everyone for joining. Thanks Code Peak for setting this up with your entire team, and taking time out for this. Renato, again, thank you so much for taking all those questions and being patient with all the questions. Really appreciate your time as always. Really looking
Thank
forward to
you.
what we can see with Doxy next. Yeah, cannot wait.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
certainly. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you, all you guys. We're excited for the community that the community that
Uh,
is able here. Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Feel free to ping us on Discord, guys. Even on the Code Peak Discord channel, I think there's an Aviyel channel. So anytime you need any help with contributing to Doxy, please feel free to kind of post questions there, and somebody from the Aviyel team will definitely reach out to you and help you with those contributions.
Sure, sure thing,
Um,
sure thing. Yeah,
thank you, everyone. Yeah,
I think Metal. One last thing, I think those guys that are on the Avo Discord, they're
yeah,
able to call us, like to have a chat or something like that.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely.
So yeah, feel free guys to reach me out on Discord, and have a chat, talk about it. I'm not so like I don't talk that much on Discord, but I'm totally free to talk about it, anything. So feel free.
Absolutely. You guys can find Renato on Twitter as well, and I think you're quite active there also. So please feel free to follow Renato on Twitter and reach out to him directly in case you guys have any issues. Uh,
Yeah,
Thanks so much again, Renato. Have a lovely evening. Thanks so much for joining, guys.
you too.